So if you're anything like me, then you were probably extremely hyped for the release of the Neural DSP Quad Cortex. You loved the plugins and you could not wait to get your hands on their hardware unit because it looked absolutely incredible. Unfortunately, you're probably also at this point a bit disappointed with the way Neural DSP handled the release and the support of the Quad Cortex. I personally purchased my Quad Cortex almost a year ago now, and in today's video I want to talk about a few things that I have found kind of disappointing, a few things that I've also really loved about the unit, and why I think there is overall some hope for the future. Let's go and get into the video. I'm really disappointed that Neural DSP has not released any sort of formal marketplace. They have the Cortex Cloud, which is really cool for users like myself and other people who kind of just play guitar as a hobby to kind of capture stuff that they have, whether that be plugins or their amps or pedals, and they can upload it to the cloud and you can download it completely free. However, I think they are missing out on a really good opportunity to pretty much outright beat Kemper if they would release a Quad Cortex marketplace. You need to give creators like Josh Middleton or someone like Synths, any other people who are making like really high quality captures of amps that they personally own. If you give them the opportunity to make money doing this, I think Quad Cortex eventually just outright beats Kemper. That may be a hot take, but the Quad Cortex captures are really good. And if we were to give more creators the incentive to make captures of amps they have at home, I think that would be a really cool feature. Disappointment number 2 is they have not released a Quad Cortex desktop app yet. And we'll talk about that a little more later in the video, but as someone who uses this unit and the Kemper and stuff like that in my home studio, having a desktop editor is extremely convenient. I don't want to have to roll my chair over to wherever I'm sitting the Quad Cortex to change any of the parameters. I also don't want to take up any of my desk space with the Quad Cortex. So like something with the Kemper or the Helix or the Fractal Audio Axe effects, I can have any of those units off to the side, plugged in via USB, and I pull up the desktop editor, and it's a really easy workflow that I've kind of come to know and love. So that's kind of why I'm a little disappointed that Quad Cortex has not released that yet. Also, I would say there has been a lack of updates to the Quad Cortex since it's been released, and with that there has been a lack of additions to the amp model catalog. It's to my understanding that Neural DSP has been adding more captures that they do to the unit and to the Cortex Cloud, but they have not really added that many more amp models, and they kind of inflate the numbers a bit. They will take like the clean channel of an amp, the dirty channel of an amp, and the lead channel of an amp and count that as 3 different amps. Obviously I'm not a software developer, so what they're doing now may be just easier for them, and that's fine, but I just don't really want you to inflate the numbers and make it sound like there are more models than there are. The last disappointment I've had with the Neural DSP Quad Cortex, and this is even on my notes I have I'm kind of disappointed with this. They've not really given us any kind of inclination to think that plugin integration is coming really anytime soon. And there's a video from KDH, you've probably seen it at this point, but like he talks about how that was a really big selling point for a lot of people, that they would be able to basically import their plugins onto the Quad Cortex and then use those sounds live. I'm not personally playing heavy metal live. That's why I say I'm kind of disappointed. It would be cool to be able to load up my Fort and Cali suite or any of the other plugins I have from them on the Quad Cortex to just be able to use it there instead of having to load a plugin. But I mean, if I'm using it in my home studio, loading the plugin is just as easy. So I have mainly been using the Quad Cortex on my pedal board live, and that's been really great because it really doesn't take up too much real estate. There are some onboard effects that sound really good. All the amp models and a lot of the captures sound really great. There are plenty of inputs and outputs on the unit, and all of the routing within the unit itself is really straightforward and just pretty expansive, honestly. You can route anything you want to go pretty much anywhere. Sometimes I use the unit live itself as an all-in-one unit with just a volume pedal, and I've found some presets online that do exactly what I need it to do, so it is also a really viable all-in-one unit as well. As far as in my studio goes, I rarely ever use the Quad Cortex in my studio, and I think that really comes down to, like I was saying earlier, the desktop editor. I have a Kemper right behind me. I don't know if you can see it because of my chair. Typically, if I'm going to do anything in my studio, it's either going to be on an amp sim or on my Kemper, because I can just pull up a window on my computer and mess with the tone however I want there. Like I said earlier, I don't really love when the Quad Cortex is taking up a little bit of space on my desk, which is kind of hypocritical because I just said it doesn't take up a lot of space on my pedal board. It's two different things. I like to work with a really clean space. But I have found the Quad Cortex to especially be a very viable and reliable unit live. I have not had it fail on me live. I actually had another pedal fail on me live the other day, and because of the touchscreen, I was able to unplug the pedal and then kind of reroute the signal in Quad Cortex really quickly, and it was not really an issue at all. I've used the Helix Live a good bit. I've used just an analog pedal board. I say analog, a stomp box pedal board into a Kemper. I've used my Kemper Live with a Kemper remote, and I think the Quad Cortex stands above the rest as far as live usage goes. So after hating on the Quad Cortex for not having any desktop software for like the 5th time in this video, I think this is a good opportunity to talk about why I'm looking forward to the future of the Quad Cortex. I think a quick YouTube search of the Quad Cortex right now will either leave you finding some videos of people who are talking about how much they love the Quad Cortex, or lead you to some videos of people who are borderline angry with the Quad Cortex and with Neural DSP at the moment. And I just want to say, I think that both are justified. I think it is a really great unit, and if you're satisfied with the features and the way you use it doesn't require the desktop software, then you know, if you just love the unit, then you just love the unit. I do also think that there have been some promises made in the past from Neural DSP that have not been delivered on. However, as of yesterday, Neural DSP released an email saying that there is a new 2.1.0 operating software on Quad Cortex at NAMM this year, and the reason they have that new beta version of the operating system is because they need it to support the desktop software that they have made for Quad Cortex. So I'm looking forward to checking out the desktop software. I'm sure it will be sleek and very user-friendly. At that point, maybe I'll be able to throw my Quad Cortex over here where my Kemper is, and I may be selling a Kemper in the next 6 months. Who knows? The desktop software will also include some new amp models. Like I said earlier, I think there has been a lack of amp models added to the Quad Cortex. And also in the email, it says that these are not all of the updates that will be in 2.1.0. I'm assuming they weren't quite done with the update by the time NAMM came around, so there may be even more features when that comes out to the public. So with the new 2.1.0 update coming, and with the quality of the sounds we're already getting out of the Quad Cortex, I think that the future of Quad Cortex is really bright. I do kind of think that the next big thing will come from one of these big modeling companies eventually. However, at this point, I don't really see anything taking away from how good the Quad Cortex is now and can eventually be with more support. Fingers crossed, Neural DSP is finally in a position to allocate more resources to updates and to developing stuff for the Neural DSP Quad Cortex.